All right, reality designers, we are in for a treat. We are talking with Adrienne Roche. Welcome, darling. And being a human design enthusiast, did you say that you've been teaching human design for 8 years?
For 8 years. So I'm a 1-3 ego authority manifestor. And the way I encountered human design, well, the first person who told me about human design knew absolutely nothing more than to pull my chart and to tell me you're a manifester. And so that just kind of started me down the rabbit hole. But for me, the best way for me to really like process the information was kind of to tell other people about it, which I think is part of the virality of the system. It's like you can't once you've got it, you can't get rid of it. And so yeah, like I taught I was actually a an assistant to someone else teaching a human design class, but at least 8 years ago was the first time I ever taught kind of like a human design one-on-one class, like, hey, get to know human design. And um yeah, ever since I encountered it, I was like, what is this? I need to know more. And that's kind of like the approach.
Absolutely. And it was 8 years ago that I personally learned about my human design in 2016. So in 2016, I'm learning about me as a manifester and being repelled by what we are. Our energy is, repelling, kind of a turnoff. So, but what I did was I kind of put the people that lived with me and started learning about it and then taking classes here and there and that kind of stuff. I'm a 5-1 manifester. So
Hmm.
we, emotional authority. And our paths kept crossing. I just thought that's fantastic how our paths kept crossing. And I'm like, hey, darling, you haven't been on my podcast. Would you like to be a guest? And here we are.
Yeah,
Here we are.
I'm so glad to have been invited to your podcast, and hello all the folks out there that listen. Um, and it's really a pleasure to be able to share the joys of human design, the joys and the woes, because for me, I think the adventure has been the adventure of it all. So yeah, I'm just really excited to be here.
It really is an unfolding adventure. It's not really written in stone. And the information is breathing, living, changing. And the only guarantee we have is change.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about it. I'm constantly learning. And it was during COVID, the beginning of COVID, early 2020. Um, I took up drumming and I realized, oh, wow, there's a gate there with rhythm and that kind of stuff. So just learning little things and maybe experimenting. That's
Yeah.
what's important is
Yeah.
experimenting.
Yeah.
And so, darling, tell me, being a 1-3 ego and I'm a 5-1 um, emotional, I'm still learning to this day how to ride that wave.
Yeah.
Um, for those who are listening and want to learn more about the most important part of their profile, what did you find as you're learning through when you started to applying to yourself? Because you talked a little bit before I hit record about how life-changing learning about this is. What was that for you?
Well, for me, it's there was a gradual kind of unmaking process for me because I learned about human design kind of later in my 30s. And I think that the earlier you learn, the better. Now, listen, if you're older than that and you're just learning about human design, it's fine. But for me, it required kind of the unmaking of my life, the life that I had built based on a lot of old previous conditioning. So I actually went into my experiment very radically. So it was interesting because I found out about human design and I met my very best friend at the same time, an emotional manifester. Her name is Makiba Ellington. And probably within 2 weeks of me actually physically meeting her, and I remember meeting her just like it was yesterday because when I met her, I hugged her, a stranger, like way too long. It was very weird. But I was like, I knew that this woman was my sister, just in some very weird way. And for me, it like we got the information like, oh, hey, you're a manifester. And the person that told me that was like, hey, did you know Matt McKeeba's a manifester too? And I'm like, no, really? And we began to study together. So we were study buddies. Now, she actually had known about human design a little bit before me, but being able to study with someone and then inquire very strongly around, well, what is the experiment? How does one experiment? And I have like a scientific background. So I was like, well, I'm going to experiment like a scientist. And I'm going to start with a hypothesis, right? I'm going to start with some foundational piece of knowledge, right? A piece of the pie that is a part of the system. And I'm going to experiment with that. So many times that, we were in discussions and people would say, oh, your strategy and authority, your strategy and authority. Okay, cool. Authority was foggy to me, but strategy was pretty straightforward. And that was where I started to experiment, which was what does it look like to not be a responder? What does that even mean? What is response? So it made me, I'm a 1-3. So here I go down the rabbit hole. Well, what is response? Oh, well, response is kind of this unfurling of energy inside of a sacral being. Okay, well, I don't have that. So if I don't have that, then what does it look like when I'm faking that? Or, you know what I mean? And what does it look like if I stop? And I actually came up with a term called anti-strategy. Like that you experiment with something called anti-strategy. So what I did was one of my very first experiments. I'll never forget this because I was actually um, reading a relationship therapist at the time, and it was about not answering questions because that was one of the things that I heard that manifestors hated. I'm like, oh, I mean, I kind of do get annoyed at some questions, but I like other questions. And what is the difference between these questions I like and I don't like? Um, right? Like which ones do I like? Which ones don't I like? So for me, what was important was I needed to stop the momentum. So what ends up happening is you are living a life and then you meet human design and everything in your life has momentum in the old direction. Now, if you're driving a train or a giant boat or anything that has a lot of mass, turning direction requires overcoming a lot of inertia and or momentum in a direction. Yeah, scientific background. So like I realized that my life was exactly that. Something that was very large and that had been headed in one direction, full speed ahead, based on my old conditioning. And this
Which was like
system
a brick wall.
well, no, I mean, no, the conditioning is actually to me more so like momentum in a direction. It's just maybe it's the wrong direction. Maybe some of it's not the wrong direction, but I had to test it. And
That's
I
key.
think that yeah, I think human design actually comes in more like when you're deconditioning and you realize that this direction no longer belongs to you, that becomes like you can't go that way anymore. And so that's what happened to me. So I did an experiment and the experiment was so ridiculous, but it worked out well for me. It was when anyone would ask me a question, I wasn't worried about whether it was the questions I liked or not, but everybody got the same answer. I wanted to give myself a 1 month break from answering any questions. And so anytime anyone would ask me a question, I'd say, listen, and it was particular questions, how and why questions, because those are expensive to answer. I was like, if you have a how or why question for me, someone would ask the question, I would say, I'm not answering how or why questions this month. If you're still interested next month, come back
I love it.
and follow up with me. Do you know how many people came back and followed up?
Oh my gosh.
None. Because people ask questions sometimes compulsively, like they blink or, just scratch at themselves. They just ask questions. And so sometimes they don't even have, it wasn't even legitimate curiosity making them ask the questions. It was compulsion. What if people are
Habitual.
just, yeah, habitual, like conditioned questioning? And then so that it made me start to question my entire existence. Like, especially because have you ever had someone come and ask you a question and they made it seem so urgent or important or important that you answer them and that they need to know and that you've got to tell them and you got to be honest and you got to give them everything. When in reality, what I found was that answer of I'm not answering how or why questions for the month of, May or the month of like September. And it would jar them. And I think they were intrigued. So it was kind of acceptable for me to do this weird ass behavior. I'm kind of weird anyway. I'm a manifester. So I do this weird little thing and they would just accept it. Yeah. So that was one of my first, I would say that was one of the deepest experiences. It was very surreal because in that month, I got so much of my energy back. And that was disturbing to me because I'm like, well, have I been leaking energy by answering questions willy nilly all my life? Yeah.
It's quite an
So
awakening. Yeah.
it
When you
is. It's,
realize all these people, 60% plus the population generators, they generate their own energy. They can just keep going. But to realize I can't do that was liberating.
yeah,
I just have to find a different path. And it's an awakening. It really is a realization to realize, okay, my energy is so different. And, it's interesting because in April, I went to give a presentation for the University of Arizona. Well, I was there within the room where all of the presenters were. And when I came in, my display was really beautiful and all this stuff. But when I was standing there, I realized I could feel like this ring of energy go around the room and everybody was at the boundary of this ring of energy. So all I had to do was set the intention inside my mind to initiate, hey, come on over and we're going to have a great conversation because there's a bunch of geeks there. So it's
yeah,
it's a total geek conference, and I just thought it. Just the thought initiated that, and I could feel the curiosity and the magnetism coming. Before I knew it, I was having great conversations. So it really is it's a shift in that conditioning,
yeah,
being conditioned to behave in certain ways. But for me, it didn't feel natural. It didn't feel normal. It didn't feel like I fit in, but
yeah,
understanding how we work together
yeah.
was definitely
Yeah.
transforming.
I would say for me, that was one of the other changes that happened along the way as I began to really accept myself as a manifester because I am a 1-3 and I remember reading like, oh yeah, the 1-3, all of you're in the lower hexagram, you're very self-focused. I'm like, oh, am I? So I that was another thing that I really allowed myself to do to really kind of display well, I feel like it's a healthy amount of selfishness, but it could be a little bit beyond. To be so self-curious, and that's part of the reason why I started Manifestors is because I wanted to study manifestors because I wanted to study myself. And I was
I
like,
love the
well,
Manny sisters. That's so awesome. Being a 5-1,
yeah,
and the heretic, I hated the 5-1 when I first started learning about it. It's like, well, how can I do a mindset shift? And I'm really starting to create this wonderful relationship with the heretic, and
yeah,
having fun with it, because it doesn't have to all be so dead on serious and matter of fact because geez, things are changing within minutes now, so having this heretic, oh, okay, everybody's going that way. Guess which way I'm going?
yeah.
See you later.
Oh,
So it just kind of embracing that part as a gift,
yeah,
rather than having it framed in such a, I was totally turned off when I first started learning about my qualities of human design. It was really standoffish, but you know what? It's been an amazing journey learning about how this energy works and looking at it from, the stamp I received as soon as I popped into this. What does Ra call this?
Oh, the
Uh,
plane,
the
this
plane,
Maya.
the Maya, the
Yeah.
field, the yeah, the matrix, if you
Yeah.
will, and how much control we actually have over it.
Yeah. I mean, we are, I mean, that's our relationship with the material plane, is that we are the ones that can push it to bring in, um we kind of sit at the gateway between thought and materialization that happens through the throat chakra, through the throat center. And for me, that was one of the things. So when I became very self-focused, it really helped me to um observe some of these things about myself. And one of the things I observed about myself is how much I occupy edges versus necessarily being in the middle of anything. So at times I could be the center of attention, occupy the center, but I would almost invariably make my way to the edge. I was the kind of person that loved to be near an exit. I like to be able to leave when I want to. I'm not going to the party with you in your car. I'm going in my car. Yeah, so it's it was really being able to observe that, and then be in full acceptance of it, because I think that was, uh, in some ways I was very lucky, um with my upbringing. Some of the conditioning that I had, there was kind of gaps of conditioning, because I was the last child my parents had. I think they kind of forgot me a little bit. So I mean, I had societal conditioning to worry about, but my parents were rather, I don't know, they were indulgent with me a bit in some ways. And then, like, I had a daughter, I had a kid at 20, but my family was so crazy. I came from a family of generators that were all ego defined through the 4037. Like, I thought if I had known human design, it would have been weird. But I was in a family full of emotional beings, but all ego defined. And I think that was probably had the greatest impact on me, right? Because I am not emotionally defined, but I am ego defined. So I thought everyone stood up for themselves and didn't do what other people said. Like, to be among so many people with defined egos, it was, I never felt like I was could boss people around or anything weird like that. And then I get out into the world and I encounter something different. But learning human design really helped me to put some of those things in perspective and accept them, accept that about myself.
I love that. And for me, it has to be practical because I too come from research, asking questions, hypothetical theories, and abstracts. My abstract included in my abstract, I've applied a superstring theory to a behavior model, and it's been a fascinating journey because part of that process is deconditioning your natural energy state
Mhm.
of beingness and unmaking. You used the word unmaking. I love that for deconditioning because it's been made, but now it needs to be unmade. Or I like to use the term integrated because we can't push it away and say I'm not going to look at that anymore. Because the more you push away at something, the more it's gonna, you got this war
I
going
have
on.
seven open centers. I don't know if that's true for me, because, like, I used to overthink as a fun activity. The thinking, I think, still happens, but I'm not a part of it anymore. I don't push it away, but I realize that there's some things that I was doing habitually, just like people asking questions. And I'm like, why am I doing this? So it's not even, I like to look at it without even, with no judgment. But the question is like, why am I even doing this? And then can I just put it, what happens if I just put it down? Like again, not answering questions for a month. What you find out is so profound. You also find out that even if you stop your compulsive things, I have 7 open centers. So a lot of my experiment is about openness and being around other people. So what I one of my biggest experiments, well, some of my biggest experiments have been ones that I didn't plan, but arrived for me so that I could really understand how not in control of anything we are. So I did somehow stop my compulsive just thinking. I typically don't do that anymore. And so you could find me sitting, staring off into space and ask me, what are you thinking about? And the I that you would talk to, would say nothing. Well, one day my daughter and I went to the chiropractor, and we were in these therapy beds in separate therapy rooms, but the therapy rooms are very close together. We're not even 6 feet apart. And all of a sudden, I observed my mind thinking about something that I had already figured out. See, here's the thing. This was the tricksy part. I had already figured this out. This was actually a medical billing thing. Um, we have insurance, and we were going to figure out how many more visits and then how many we were going to have to pay for. Well, I had already figured it out. I already done the math, and I was like, oh, we're going to buy these extra 6 so we can come every 2 weeks like our normal thing. When we got into the car, my daughter's like, so I think I figured out how we're going to pay the thing. And I said, oh, it was you, huh? She's like, what do you mean? I'm like, yeah, I saw your mental gymnastics. I saw you thinking. It was her thinking because it was the weirdest kind of thinking. I was like, that's not how I even thought. That's not even my way of thinking. So being able, part of it was being horizontal, right? I wasn't asleep. Being horizontal is in some ways, a vulnerable position for mammals. And we learned
Open,
that through human design. But
open position. Yeah.
yeah, but not asleep, just horizontal and close to someone. I was like, oh, her thoughts were transmitting to me. And she was doing math. And I knew, I was like, I'm just going to watch, I'm on the therapy bed. I got these rollers. They're like automatically rolling and I'm just looking at this like, what is this? What is this? What's happening? And it felt like that old compulsive thinking. And I realized it wasn't mine. And that was probably one of the first, and this was not that long ago. Maybe this was 2 or 3 years ago that I was able to observe thoughts in my head in real time from someone else.
I totally agree. I have 5 unconditioned centers. And once I learned about those, all right, is what I'm feeling in this area mine? And as soon as you ask that question, the nervous system will answer. And if it's not mine, it's gone. If it's mine, memories might come back or thoughts related to that specifically to me will come back. So it's very clear. After a while, you start to realize, is this conditioning? And you realize you can just let it go. You can reprogram it very quickly.
Yeah,
It's,
but I thought it was fun. To me,
it
I was
is
like, this is,
fun.
I was like, well, it was very interesting because it did feel foreign. It felt like it wasn't mine. And I didn't feel attachment to it. Like I didn't actually engage with it because I already had figured it out. Like it was actually figured out. It was done. And I just thought it was so interesting. I was like, oh, wow. And realizing that our proximity to other people, there's a certain amount of conditioning that we adopt, right? From having been around people. And then it's like, you leash a dog, they only go so far in a radius. You take the leash away and they continue to stay within that radius because they're trained. Well, once you've untrained yourself, then you start to realize there are other sources yet that can infiltrate and touch you. And, you know, I don't know. I don't know that, well, first of all, you can never shield yourself from the sky. The transits are always happening. And then when you are around other people, this is why for me as a manifester, as much as I would love to say, oh, I just, strategy and authority, I just know myself so well. I know myself pretty well, but I also make it my business to know the charts of the people I'm going to spend time with, just so I can know where those connections happen. Because like my daughter, we do have a connection that happens that connects our head and ajna. Like I have no an open head and ajna. She has definition there, and then we have a connection that gives me access to that with her. And it's nice for me to know that because I can know
Yeah,
whether or
for
not I'm being
sure.
influenced by this person.
Yep. Experimenting is key. It's like, okay, does this apply to me? Take what works for you and let go of the rest. Because, when I started on this human design journey, I've been a hypnotist since 2008. I
Okay.
became a master hypnotist in 20, I want to say 22. Um, so much happened during that time, but understanding how this human design and how I can apply it to my life and this deconditioning. We are so
Yeah.
programmed. And what I see, the more I learn about myself, the more there's this natural compassion and peace with
Yeah.
others. And that's key because if I know myself and I know how my energy works and I know when my anger is triggered, you know thyself, then you have this, okay, this person, I might not know their human design, but I could maybe guess, but I don't know if guessing is judging, who knows? But it's like, this energy feels like this,
Yeah.
and allow that person the space to let happen because they could be releasing conditioning. They're
Yeah.
just being conditioned to behave the way they're behaving.
Yeah.
And I can see that happening in schools. Sometimes I'm contracted into the school environment and I see how staff might do things in a certain way that actually encourages bad behavior. So these people are conditioned to behave a certain way. And
Yeah.
it's just been fantastic seeing it on this level and then
Yeah.
applying hypnosis, self hypnosis. That's my specialty is waking state hypnosis. When you do this on yourself and you create this powerful space, you see all the masks of the not self. And that's not part of my energy. That is not who I am. And being able to sit in this space is a really powerful and healing place to be. So, darling, I wanted to ask you, where did you grow up? You mentioned where you grew up, family and stuff like that, where you grew up. Where did you grow up?
I'm from Detroit, Michigan. So yeah, I am from the Motor City, born and raised, and still here. I've lived other places, but I've come back. And yeah, this is where I'm from, and it's really interesting because there are very particular conditionings to this place.
Oh, yeah. I'm from
And
Chicago. Yeah.
okay, yeah, so you get it.
Hmm.
It's like because Detroit is an automotive town and so much of our industry is surrounding the automotive industry, like all of my jobs that I've ever had were either related to the automotive industry or for a while I worked in academia. And what I can say is, there's a lot of challenging conditioning around labor and work in a place like same thing with Chicago, a place where labor and work looked like hard work, and being a manifester and not knowing it, being this particularly, I have one channel, the 4521, and I have
Tell
to
us what that
say,
channel's, what is 4521?
so the 4521, the 45 is in the throat, the 21 is in the ego center or the heart center. And the 4521 is oftentimes called the money line. But I think Rob was making a joke. when he called it the money line, because I don't find it to actually be the money line. It is sometimes also called the tribal leader and education and resources for tribes. And most of the time, once I got into my stride in my career, because I had a career in IT, I tended towards project management. And project management is, managing resources and people, but I didn't have any products. Like I did not produce anything for the most part myself. I mostly motivated other people and managed other people's work. And that was good. I mean, because I was able to automate some things and do stuff and actually have a lot of freedom and a lot of free time in my day. But I still think that as I really got deep into my human design journey, it didn't matter. Like all of that, some of those things just had to go away because I had built them um based on some a previous program, and I was kind of entering into a new program. But even up to that point, like they call it the tribe leader. One of the gates is the gatherer and one is the controller of resources. I hadn't gathered anyone ever, not really. Like every gathering of people had already been gathered for me. I
Are you
wasn't the
sure
kind.
it's the gatherer of people?
Well, yeah, I'm gonna say that the 45. I don't think people. So
It
yes,
could
I'm.
mean why Ra meant money because it could be the gatherer of money.
Yeah, nah. I personally don't think so, and this is why I'm gonna give it to you. So the voice of the throat is I have. And I'm going to tell you the only thing that a tribe leader has, the king or the queen really actually has, they don't have money. The money is granted to them, they're granted fiduciary duties about the money by the tribe. What a king or queen really has is people. The ego center, every gate going to that center, besides one, the 51, all of those are tribal channels. These are all people channels. Now we can talk about resources, but resources come with people. The tribe leader doesn't have anything if the tribe leader doesn't have people. And the ego center, if you go around and you you look at all of the gates, we talk about the G center having roll gates. I think that the heart center also has roll gates. These roll gates are who do we have in the tribe? And if you look at each of those, you're going to find every kind of person that you need in a tribe. You need a politician. That's the 26. You need the convincer. You need that's also the clown. But like the 26 has a multitude of roles that go into it. You need a shaman, you need a priest. That's the
I'll be the
51.
clown.
I love a 26. Okay.
I don't
Um,
know if I have the 26. I'd have to look.
yeah, you need the 20, you need a 21 because you need someone to actually know the material resources that are available. And we know the 45 and the 21 hook up. That's why they call it the money line. But the money is in the 21. It's not at the 45. The 45 is a figurehead, just talks. And then the 40 is inside of the tribe. Individuals can't get lost, meaning that if everybody in the tribe does exactly the same job, you don't have a very useful tribe. If every, like if even if we are
It's
we're an
not
agrarian,
practical.
it's
Yeah.
not practical. If we're an agrarian society and everybody grows corn, we're going to starve most of the year. So we need people who are running an orchard and people who are growing grain, and then so
We used to have a family orchard in Michigan
did you?
near
Yeah, see.
Pawpaw. Hmm.
Oh, really? Yeah, like I'm from Michigan. We care about apples. I do. I care about apples, cherries, all manner of stone fruit, and sometimes grapes. For me, I don't think it's about money. Um, Even though I recognize that it does touch resources, but if we have to understand, and this is one of the things that's going to break in 2020, it's breaking as we get towards 2027. Money is literally, it's a tool. It is just a medium for exchange of resources. It in itself is not the thing.
No, it's
This,
money's innocent. It's just the thing.
yeah,
It's
it's
the
just the thing.
thing.
It's just the thing. The people, the people and the people give the king or queen or the 45 the I have. You don't have nothing if the people didn't give it to you. You know, you think about the Queen of England or the King of England right now. Um, and we've seen kings and queens be dethroned and beheaded when the people say yay or nay. So the real power is in the people. The real power. Yeah. Anyway,
Agreed.
yeah.
The real power is in the people. Do you hear that, people? Are you listening?
Yeah.
The real power is in the people, not the
Yeah.
other clown show going on. And
No.
I talk about hypnosis too, because if you look in the rhetoric, you can see the hypnosis. It's just glaring in your
Hmm.
in the face, and understanding who you are and your energy, you can't be manipulated so easily. And that's the other thing I see is when people really understand their energy, how it works, when you understand how you work, when you're trying someone's trying to manipulate you, right?
Yeah.
It feels icky. You just, ew, get away from me. It just totally different recognition and awakening toward that. So, oh my God, it seems like we can just go on forever. We can go on forever, darling. Totally good.
I mean,
So, do you ever
I'm
get to Chicago?
um actually yes. I occasionally come. So it's really funny because I am definitely not a person that likes crowds most of the time. So I'm not usually in the main places, but I have been known to like sneak into town, go up to gosh, what is the city? Do you know King Spa? The Korean day spa. There is a
King's
Korean
Spa.
grocery store and it's a Korean
Oh,
day
in
spa.
Chicago. Yeah.
Huh?
And is it in Chinatown?
I want to say it's in, is it Skokie?
Skokie? Okay, north. Mm-hmm.
Yes, north. It's
Korean
north.
Day Star. I'm in the NIU area, Northern
Oh,
Illinois University area, which is
okay.
about 65 miles or 100 kilometers. We have European listeners, 65 miles or 100 kilometers from Chicago. So we're in the
Okay.
woods. So I'd love to have you come out.
Oh yeah. I love getting out and about, and we've been talking about having more in-person gatherings here in the Midwest. So there's I don't know if you've had a chance to talk to Monique. She's in Wisconsin.
We
And so
definitely need more face to face. Face to face is so imperative.
yeah, for
So
sure.
imperative.
For
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. This
Um,
it's one of my favorites. I've been to the High Desert Human Design Conference a couple times. I've been to the International Human Design Conference once. And I've also hosted a Manifestor Women's Retreat. We had 20 Manifestor women on a mountain in Colorado.
nice.
So yeah, so
Nice.
that was pretty wild. And definitely looking forward to some more in-person things. But for right now, one of the things I'm doing is a lot more online stuff. Just I think partially to gauge interest, but also, there is value there as well. But I do want to get more in-person FaceTime.
I'm there with you. Totally agree. 1000%. And we have some nice places around here too, by the way.
Yeah.
So, oh my gosh. So, reality designers, I want to hear from you. We have had such in-depth conversation. There may be some things talked about that maybe went right over your head. That's okay. If you're new to human design, just understanding, sitting in your energy and feeling it, feeling what feels right for you and what doesn't feel right, let it go. Just let it go. And we want to know what you loved, And we want to know what you would love more of. Any parting words to our listeners?
I would say that more important than anything that you can learn about your human design is feeling into your body and being able to build a relationship where you respect the feelings that are going through your body. No matter how irrational or weird it may appear to your mind, allowing yourself to be in complete devotion to the feelings that happen in your body, because those are signals and signs coming through from your subconscious, and they're for you to listen to. And you know, we are on a journey, so it's not about arriving at a place of perfection, but going along for the ride.
Amen. For sure. It is definitely a journey and a constant learning. Because what may have worked yesterday might not work today because we're under different kinds of energies, and things are constantly moving and changing, and being flexible and adaptable is really a gift. It really
Yeah,
is. So excellent advice. Thank you so much. I hope we can do this again. This is fantastic.
for sure.
All right. Thank you. And keep being amazing.